Hey, what's going on, everybody? If you don't know me, my name's Cole. I'm a digital marketer based in Syracuse, and I've decided with my marketing page I want to go live, hopefully every single day, and just kind of talk about basic digital marketing tips and tricks that I think will help a lot of small businesses do really well as they navigate the digital marketplace and understand how to go about new age digital marketing and things like that. So with that, as these live streams happen, feel free to ever chime in with any questions. I'd love for this to be a Q&A kind of thing and see how I can help your business with your digital marketing questions and social media questions in general. So feel free to leave in the comments any questions you have, and I'll get to them as soon as I see them. And in the meantime, I did want to bring up a really interesting article that I saw that I think would apply to a lot of businesses. Let me just adjust my audio really quick. Okay, that's better. Okay, so I want to show you this article right here. This is an article on Social Media Today. It says right here, new data reveals the latest social media usage trends, including the rise of Reddit, TikTok, and Snapchat. So this is really interesting because I've seen in my time doing social media consulting and working for companies who are trying to run their social media platforms and things like that, that this is a common occurrence where people talk about TikTok and Snapchat and Instagram even, and a lot of businesses think, well, these platforms are on the rise, and does that mean that I should prioritize trying to make content on TikTok or the next latest social media platform, and should I forego Facebook? Because a lot of people have a perception that Facebook no longer is as relevant. And this article is really great because it kind of elaborates on where we are in terms of the usage of these social media platforms and just how relevant, Facebook and like YouTube and stuff still are. So really quickly, I just want to read a little bit of this. It says right here, despite seemingly losing some of its shine as the leading platform of choice, Facebook continues to see the most daily usage according to the latest findings from Pew Research. For its 2021 social media usage survey, Pew interviewed 1,502, I'm guessing this is US citizens, about their social media habits, providing an overview of key trends and shifts in social media platform adoption and usage, which, given the events of the last 12 months, have been impacted significantly, with most platforms seeing a rise in usage. But as noted, Pew's data reveals that the big players remain in charge, even with other apps gaining some ground. So this is great because what I always stress for social media clients, excuse me, what I always stress for social media clients is to not get too swept up with the concept of what platforms are gaining ground and, acting like that is going to make it so that your content is going to perform better. Now, all these platforms are completely different. They all have advantages and disadvantages, and there's also differences in terms of the demographics that are on these platforms. And that kind of stuff, we'll talk about as these live streams go on. And it's really important to note that and understand where your demographic, where your potential clients or customers are going to be based on, their average time on social media. That's all really important stuff to know. But as far as what we see today, with, and recent years, just because Facebook and Google and even Instagram have been around for a while, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are not performing as well as like these titles that are new and name grabby and they take up a lot of this headline space for for news and things like that. So that's just something to keep in mind, that just like this article talks about, even as these platforms are, been around for a while, they're still very, very relevant. And as you can see, I think they have a graph on this article that I'll show you right now that really kind of elaborates on just how many people in the US are using Facebook still versus the other competitors. So if we go down here, you can see growing share of Americans say they use YouTube, and also Facebook remains one of the most widely used online platforms among US adults. So this is really interesting, and I thought this was super intriguing. I definitely did not think there was nearly as much of a gap between Facebook, YouTube, and the rest of the world. I will say it's not surprising to me that YouTube is trending higher than Facebook, and that's because I think that YouTube, which was a platform that came out when I was in middle school. It used to be like fail videos and these other kinds of lower integrity kind of videos. And when I say lower integrity, I just mean very much for like short-term entertainment purposes, right? However, YouTube is really starting to reflect kind of what Google is most known for, and as you should hopefully know that Google owns YouTube, so it makes sense that they mirror each other. But YouTube is being used more and more for a platform for education, and I think that whenever there's a platform that has a strong connection to education, it's really, really great for that platform, because that means you're going to have like how-to videos and ways to learn different things, and people are going to return to these videos. If they're learning how to build a house, which you can do on YouTube, which is pretty crazy. You're not going to watch that YouTube video once. You're going to watch it like 1,000 times to kind of let all the information sink in. And also it appeals to a lot of people learning new things, and by going onto a website instead of having to read it in a book or take a class through a college or something like that. So that makes a lot of sense to me that YouTube is trending a lot higher, but Facebook is trending really, really well still. And I would love to know, I'll do some research into kind of where this big uptick is here in 2016, and then also why it plateaued after that. I'd love to kind of understand that a little bit more. But I think the big thing to talk about is this big gap between Facebook and even the third runner-up, which is Instagram. The really interesting thing here is, Instagram has had a really steady growth. Makes a lot of sense. Since Instagram was bought by Facebook, Facebook has definitely made it a big priority to constantly improve that platform. And you have things like stories that were huge, IGTV, which was a little bit less huge, but still an advancement for the platform. So there's a lot of nuance happening with these platforms and changing. And you see that a lot in Facebook. You've seen that since its inception, but Instagram does that a lot too. So what's really interesting here, and maybe I can zoom in a little bit, hopefully. Yeah, here we go. So what's really interesting, I think, to me here is that you have TikTok, looks like TikTok right here in this kind of orange, which is kind of plateauing. And that's super interesting to me. Now, when these people were interviewed, it seems like, it hadn't probably taken into full account yet as much COVID. I imagine I think they said right here when they interviewed these people, for its 2021 social media survey. So I guess they got information involving all of 2020. But that's really interesting to me that TikTok really did not see much growth, a little bit, but not much growth between 2020 and 2021. Super interesting to me, because I think that, at least in what a lot of people talk about, is that TikTok really exploded during the pandemic. One thing that's interesting is that when I worked at TikTok, I didn't know what the platform was until I started working there, which was late 2018, I think like November of 2018. It had obviously been around for a couple of years at that point, but a lot of my friends and stuff like that, younger millennials, did not know about TikTok when I first started there. And then soon after that, really 2019 was I think a big time of discovery. So it's kind of interesting to see how the usage didn't go up directly with, at least what my experience with learning TikTok and becoming familiarized with it. I do imagine that TikTok will get a lot bigger. I think that people know about a platform for a while before they actually get involved with it and start marketing on it, which for small business owners, that's huge. I think that one big takeaway here is, first of all, don't give up on your Facebook and YouTube marketing and things like that, or even Instagram, because those players are still huge, and that's where the vast majority of United States citizens are going for their social media binging. So that's really important to know. But also, I mean, keep in mind that these other platforms that, especially like the TikToks of the world that are newer, and they don't have Clubhouse in here, but I think Clubhouse is going to become something kind of similar, just a couple years behind TikTok as they're just starting to get rolled out now. But this is going to be right here, this is going to be your primary place where you should most likely make content now. And that's where you're going to see the most significant impact to your clientele and to your marketing and publicity right now is going to be the Facebooks, the YouTubes, the Instagrams of the world, just based off the amount of people in the US who are using these platforms, right? But it's really important to consider these other platforms for the future. And that's something that you can't stress enough is being an early adopter of a platform, regardless of if it was Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, has inherent value. You are going to get in there before there's as much competition among creators, which is going to just give you a stark advantage, especially if you're playing a long game and you're planning on making content consistently. That is going to be a primary factor of your business marketing. So that's something I think is just super important. While I think the big stressor of this video is to talk about the fact that, don't give up on Facebook, don't give up on YouTube. Now is just as good a time as any to get involved in those platforms. Use the TikToks and the Reddits, I think, is another great platform. Use those as almost like your R&D, right? Like your research and development. Get started with those platforms now so that you can take advantage of those benefits in years to come. So that, I think, is a big takeaway here. I just want to see what the rest of this article says here. YouTube and Facebook continue to dominate the landscape, the online landscape, with 81 and 69% respectively reporting using these sites, excuse me. And YouTube and Reddit were the only two platforms measured that saw statistically significant growth since 2019, when the center last polled on the topic via phone survey. Sorry, for some reason I cannot read this font right now. So they just go on to talk here about how, Facebook's usage hasn't changed too much. YouTube really saw a significant spike right here. Like, this is huge. I mean, if you kind of mirror it, this is between 73% to 81%. If you look at like TikTok in the US, that's like 23%. I mean, YouTube has had a growth in the percentage of adults who have said they ever use YouTube. They have seen a growth in the past 2 years that is on par with the past 7 years of TikTok. So that's pretty huge, right? That's something that you definitely can't ignore, I think, if you're creating content on these platforms. So definitely understand that when you're creating your strategy. But keep in mind, while this article definitely gives us a lot of information, this is the percentage of adults who say they have ever used. So this isn't by any means the end-all be-all of information for what platform that you should be getting involved in. But I think what's really helpful with this graph is that, and this article in general, is that it does show that Facebook is still incredibly relevant. And honestly, Facebook is more relevant, at least according to this article, than TikTok right now. Things can change. These social media platforms come and go all the time. New ones emerge. Some tank, some grow exponentially. It's definitely a crazy world in terms of the digital landscape. So keep all of that in mind. But at the end of the day, I think the most important thing, and what I always stress to my social media clients, is that when you're creating content, do what is going to encourage you to keep creating more content. I always say social media, content creation, and digital marketing are like a diet, right? There's a million different ways that you can get in shape. You have, the Atkins diet, you have Mediterranean diet. There's a plethora of ways that you can possibly get in shape. But what's going to be the best for you is going to be the one that works as the best for you, right? And that just means that which one that you can stay consistent with, which one works for you and that you enjoy and that you can continue to make progress with. Because if you start making content for like 1 week on any one of these platforms, you're not going to see crazy returns, right? But if you are able to consistently make content for months and months and months and months, that's when you really start to grow as a brand on these social media platforms. So at the end of the day, choose the platform that is the best platform for you to create content with that you're the most familiar with, which I imagine would be Facebook or Instagram for most people. But if that's where you're gonna have the most consistency, that's where you're gonna have the most success. So with that, thank you guys so much for watching. Like always, definitely if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I'm here to try to help small businesses. And that's the whole point of these live streams are to kind of try to give you an opportunity to understand these platforms as we kind of shift to less of a traditional marketing world and more of a digital marketing world. So thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a comment below, ask any questions, and hopefully I'll see you very soon in the next live stream. Thanks, guys.